This program is made possible in part thanks to generous donations from viewers like you.
Hello and welcome to the Suzanne Atwell Show. In this edition, the Legacy Trail, the Florida Gulf Coast Trail, public parks, and land conservation. It is a story about a popular destination where development and population growth are impacting our quality of life. Interestingly, we begin at a train station. The historic Venice train station opened in 1927 and is currently the southern starting point of the Legacy Trail. It played a major role in the development of Venice, notably the Kentucky Military Institute faculty and students spent winters here for nearly 4 decades. It was the primary materiel and personnel supply route for the U.S. Army's air base during World War II. Many locals still remember when the Ringling Circus arrived on the rail line when it moved winter operations to Venice in 1960. 10 years later, in 1971, Amtrak arrived in Southwest Florida, which eliminated passenger service to Venice. The transition from a railroad corridor to a recreation trail marked the beginning of a new era in public park use and land conservation in Sarasota County. Thanks to a 2018 Sarasota County bond referendum, the trail was extended nearly 8 miles into downtown Sarasota. Improvements include the Ashton Sarasota Springs and Pompano trailheads, with the trail now going all the way to Payne Park. There is also a Northport connector trail. Future plans include extending east to Bobby Jones, north to Bendison Park, and eventually connecting with Lakewood Ranch and Manatee County. The person responsible for putting the pieces of the puzzle together and leading this effort is former Sarasota County Commissioner, now Florida Gulf Coast Trail Program Director, Charles Hines. We're going to be focusing primarily on the Legacy Trail, but please tell us about Florida Gulf Coast Trail and the Legacy and how it connects.
So people here locally know the Legacy Trail. It's a phenomenal trail. But what people really don't know, and I found this out when I started working with TPL, is they don't know what the Florida Gulf Coast Trail is. So the Legacy Trail is, a 30-mile segment of a 340-mile trail from Tampa, St. Pete, down to Naples. The issue with it is there are a lot of gaps in this trail. It's not really connected. So our goal and my goal with TPL is to try to fill in those gaps so we have true connectivity from Tampa to Naples and have trails that aren't just out and backs. They're true potentially alternative transportation and creates the connectivity between parks and schools, all those things that we need.
So when you look, let's go back to 2022, what were the biggest accomplishments?
So here locally, we opened up the extension to downtown Sarasota. Sarasota, the city of Sarasota opened up right before the end of the year their Complete Street project. We opened up the segment in Northport that connects down close to War Mineral Springs. So that's just our county. But I think overall, I calculated it recently, about 30 some miles to the Florida Gulf Coast Trail was added last year.
Well, the trail seems to be growing exponentially. Where's it heading?
Now, where are we going? And the one that I'm focused on right now in our community is connecting up that east-west connection. So I mentioned the Legacy Trail ends in Payne Park. City of Sarasota did its Complete Streets to Ring, along Ringling.
Right.
So we want to connect the west to the bay and then ultimately out to Longboat Key. Going east is the city's doing the Bobby Jones Golf Course. That's getting redone. It's got a conservation easement over it now. There's going to be some wetlands created. You have water quality project. It's going to be beautiful. Take the trail through there, connect up to 17th Street Park, which is a county-owned park that the county's redoing right now, doing its first huge destination playground. So the trail will go by there, and then all the way out to UTC and Nathan Benderson Park. So we'll have a separated, safe trail going from Nathan Benderson Park to the bay.
So how do we get from Payne Park to the bay?
Sure. So the city did with its Complete Street project, which was bold, is what I'll say it was, to take a 4-lane Ringling, boulevard and take it down to 2. People said, wait a minute, we need that road wasn't heavily traveled, but to do that in an urban area took a lot of courage. And they did it, and it's going to get us to Marina Jack, which it's already there. Then we got to work and find ways to get to the bay. And right now there's a corridor study going on by the MPO relating to Fruitville Road and those ways. So there are ways to get out up through like 10th Street that the city is looking to design where there's right-of-ways. It may not be to the level of the Legacy Trail in regards to width and so forth because of right-of-way acquisition. But clearly the city and everyone wants to connect to the bay. The other part of it is to connect Newtown to downtown and the bay.
Last question, last words, looking to the future, 3 or 4 years, what's your vision? What do you see happening?
Well, for your audience and the people here, is I'd like to see that connectivity up to Lakewood Ranch, out to Lakewood Ranch, and into Manatee County. That's all doable. The next one is in South County, you have River Road that's currently under construction. That's North River Road. So it'll have a separated trail and it'll be good, but it's not connected to anything. We want to connect and do South River Road that gets us down to the Mayaca Forest. Again, no land acquisition here. You go through the Mayaca Forest and you connect up to Charlotte County. And then Charlotte County segment down there is done. So that would be the connectivity that if you're here in Sarasota or you're in Venice, you can go north and south on this trail and really feel that regional impact. And that's where thing would be, that's tourism. That's, you go to the Brave Stadium down there, you go to the Mayaca Forest, you go out to UTC and watch a rowing event. That makes it not just an out and back, a couple-hour trip. That's something that would be really special. So from a local standpoint, we need to support this, help raise funds for it, and get it done. And I've said this publicly, is I believe Sarasota County can be one of the best trail communities in the country.
That is a big inspirational challenge Charles has articulated for us, and it's totally realistic and doable. But it's going to take a lot of money and a lot of teamwork. At the top of that list, the Friends of the Legacy Trail.
Let's start with some background information. Tell us about the Friends of the Legacy Trail.
So Friends of the Legacy Trail started out as the Friends of the Park. So Sarasota County, the park system has a Friends group, and we're a part of that. We broke away in 2015 and formed our own group, the Friends of the Legacy Trail. In 2016, we became a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, so we can raise money. And what we're really trying to do is help to maintain and enhance the trail. One of the things we worked really hard on in 2018 was the referendum to fund the extension of the trail from Culver House Nature Park into downtown Sarasota at Palmer Ranch. And so that was really a very hectic period. And as you may remember, we had a great voter turnout, great support from the residents of Sarasota County. And it's remarkable because they were actually raising their real estate taxes. And it was almost 72% of the electorate voting at that time supported the referendum to raise $65 million to extend the trail and build a connector to Northport.
Explain the strategic, and I say strategic because the relationship between the Friends of the Trail, Sarasota County, and the Florida Gulf Coast Trail. How does that all fit in with each other?
Well, first of all, the Friends has an agreement with the county. So the county really pretty much oversees our operations. We have a liaison who attends our monthly board meetings. We provide them with all of our financial data. So it's really a nice oversight group. They know exactly where every dime is that we have. The trail, I would like to think of as kind of the trunk of a tree. The original trail was more rural. And goes through Oscar Scheer State Park. There were very few roads, and you had some very nice long stretches. So people really loved that section. The extension goes through a much more urban area.
Sure. Yeah.
And it is more heavily trafficked by a lot of slower moving people. So those dog walkers are out there. We love dog walkers. They are entitled to the trail, and they're out there. But there's more of them on that northern stretch. So when the county designed this, there are lights to stop traffic so people can move forward. But I think the cyclists are also mindful of the fact that these are thoroughfares, these streets. Cars do have a right to use them also. So there's that little bit of a conflict. So a couple of things are in the works that are very exciting. One is going to be a bridge over Clark Road. So that is being planned, it's being designed, and it is funded. So the Florida Department of Transportation is building a bridge over Clark Road and also across Bee Ridge. Another exciting bridge that's being designed is for Tuttle. So there is money there to design the bridge. We just need funding for that. Recognizing that the extension went through a very urban area, relatively speaking. When the trail was designed in the northern extension, it was set off center. So the railroad right-of-way is anywhere from 100 to 150 feet wide. And usually the rail track went right down the center, and that's where the trail went. But up north, between Bay Vista and Payne Park, we were able to shift the trail over a little bit and leave space for a bifurcated trail, a separate trail for runners and walkers and strollers and dog walkers. So Friends Legacy Trail raised money. We've contributed $250,000 to that project. It was part of a grant application through the federal government. So that is going to be moving along also. So in that northern, more heavily populated area, you're going to have two trails and separate the cyclists from the walkers. We think that's a safety issue. It really is going to enhance the experience on the trail.
Responsibility for managing the growth and the user experience of the trail falls on the Sarasota County Parks and Recreation team. Their director, Nicole Rissler, joins us now.
Welcome, Nicole. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm going to start with the use of the Legacy Trail. It is increasing exponentially, which is a great thing. But with rapid growth comes growing pains. So beyond the total numbers, we have the total numbers, do we have data on the type of use and the demographics?
So, as you mentioned, the growth and use of the Legacy Trail has 200% growth over the last couple of years. And that's because more people are using it, but also because of the extension and the new portion. Demographics, we don't have specifics. We haven't done a statistically valid survey or that kind of stuff. What we do know is just from our trail stewards, our staff being out there, and those of us using it, right? We know that everybody from infants in a stroller to 90-year-olds are using this trail in many different ways. And I think that's one of the most exciting parts for us as staff is that we know the trail, the original trail, was used highly by bicyclists. But what we're seeing, especially in this more urban environment of the extension,
Right.
is people are taking their dogs out for a walk at night or in the morning. Parents and moms are pushing their kids in strollers. We're seeing a huge use of not just bicycles, but running and all of this new uses that we really didn't see in the original trail.
What is a trail steward?
So a trail steward, we actually partner with the Friends of Legacy Trail, and through that partnership, they put the volunteers out on the trails to help us. They're our eyes and our ears. They also really, they help educate people on the rules of the trail.
So who enforces these rules on the trail, and what have we learned?
Yeah. So we work with our law enforcement partners, no matter depending on what part of the trail we're in, from our municipalities when we're in the city, obviously the city PD, when we're outside of a municipality, our sheriff's office, and then when we're in Venice, the again municipality in the city of Venice. So that's really where the enforcement comes from. Certainly voluntary compliance by our staff and our stewards is great, but at the end of the day, when we talk about e-bikes going too fast, improper use of the trail, and those violation of rules ultimately comes down to our law enforcement partners.
Does the county, at this point anyway, have any data on accidents or incidents that have occurred on the trail? And we already talked about electric bikes, but where is this heading? Is there going to be an intensity and stress points?
So when we first opened the new extension, as I mentioned, it's really in a much more urban environment than our original trail, which means more road crossings. So when we first opened, yes, there was a lot of growing pains, both with vehicles and people having to stop at those crossings, as well as our user groups. A lot of our bicyclists we're used to bigger stretches where they didn't have to stop in crossing. So it's been a learning environment over the last year. What I can say is the complaints, the reports of any issues have dramatically dropped. And I think that that's people getting used to it. So for us, from a staff perspective, it is challenging to make sure that we're keeping a level of service when you talk about trash and you talk about rules enforcement and those kind of things. So I think one of the best things that we've been trying to do is really educate the public on what they can do to help us keep this amenity as beautiful as we possibly can for as many people moving forward. And I think one of the other things that we're doing is we can see the popularity already. We knew that was going to happen. So, there's two big pushes outside of the overpasses with FDOT. Sarasota County did apply for and recently get awarded a state grant that will allow us to bring in a bifurcated trail about 2 miles in different places of the extension. We have a wider corridor of railroad. And so if you think about the 12 or 15 foot path, we're going to come in and we're going to put a 6 or 8 foot path right next to it. And that will kind of help us separate the dog walking and the mom with the stroller from the bicycles. It won't be in the whole trail, but we will have some segments, and that we're very happy between the state grant and the match that the Friends of Legacy Trail helped us make for that. And the second big improvement that we're working on that I think will help experience in the future is that we are working on overpasses and design over Tuttle, Beneva, and Bay Vista.
We are fortunate in Sarasota County to have a number of leaders and foundations who are focused on this. Of those, few are as passionate and articulate as John Thaxton of the Gulf Coast Community Foundation.
We have talked many times about public parks and land conservation. The Legacy Trail seems to me it's a bit of both.
Think of the Legacy Trail and the Gulf Coast Trail as nothing more than a linear park. It provides the transportation, the recreation, it provides for health attributes, it provides for dispersal corridors for wildlife, including threatened and endangered species. It gets cars off the road, it reduces our carbon, it reduces our fuel consumption. It is a park. It just happens to be long and linear in nature as opposed to some other form that parks typically take.
This is a huge initiative, so tell me about the role of public public-private partnerships. The reality is we need this
Yes.
for this size.
Well, in reality, the vast majority of these trails and these public lands and these initiatives and referendums are citizen-led. They're citizen-born, they're citizen-bred, they're citizen-led, they're citizen-fueled.
Speaking of all the amenities a park will have, when you look at the demographics of the trail right now, trail users, there are a lot of seemingly affluent bikers with electric bikes or racing bikes, professionals. What are we doing to include middle-class families with children?
I remember when we were doing the first considerations of this trail, myself, Bruce Dillon, and others, what's it been, 30 years ago. It's been 20, 30 years ago. We knew that there were going to be conflicts. We knew that there were going to be user conflicts. But it was really impossible to predict the technology of these bicycles back then and how it's come about. So they are a new consideration. They are something that the trail administrators are going to have to look at, because not only were we not able to anticipate the vehicles that were going to be on the trail, there's no way that we were anticipating that this legacy trail would see 200,000 plus visitors a year. We never, in our wildest dreams, thought this was going to be so incredibly popular with the community. So these user conflicts are an inherent sign of success. So we should be thankful that we have them to deal with. But the point that you made is very important. I can say that the motivational genesis of this trail was to get families, senior citizens, and those neighborhoods, those working class neighborhoods that this trail traverses through. It was our hope to get them on that trail for recreation, for transportation, and for health and social benefits. And so to the extent that these fast bikes, these electrified, these motorified vehicles are interfering with that, I think that's a problem. And it's a problem that we will need to deal with.
Millions seem to have been spent on land owned by the railroad for the trail. At a moment in time when ranches and farmland, they're all being developed, how do you evaluate and prioritize investments in all this?
So I look at preserving open space, creating new parks, and building pedestrian infrastructure such as our trails as the same community need. And there are other funding sources that can be used. And the one that's recently got me bewildered is the infrastructure surtax just passed by overwhelming margins. Well, there are 5 projects on that list that do nothing but fund infrastructure where there is now or once were cow pastures. Improvements to Eastern Fruitville Road, way east of I-75. Improvements to Lorraine Road and fire stations, where there's cow pastures now. And it's a total of $96.2 million, almost $100 million. That's more money than any other funding allocation in the entire surtax. That's more money than parks, more money than libraries, more money than public safety, more money than constitutional officers. It's more money than any of them. And it's buried in this schedule, and nobody is talking about it. So now let's go back to your question. Would you rather have more open space, parks, floodplain protection, legacy trail, bayfront, or more loss of agricultural heritage areas to new gated subdivisions? So I would suggest that if you want to have more open space, you want to have more parks. So if you want to have more money for those things, I would look to that $96.2 million and those 5 projects that should be funded. And we have been promised that they would be funded out of impact fees. So there's a lot of money for you developing your parks right there. You don't need to make a choice. Now, people will counter that and say, well, a third of Sarasota County is already preserved. When is enough enough? Well, let me turn that question for just a moment, and then let's ask the community to respond to these two questions. Presently, if you take the comprehensive plans of all the cities and the counties in Sarasota County and added up the development potential that's already approved on the books, it's enough to double the population of this county. Double. Go to 400,000 to 800,000. If you think the impacts to growth for the last 200,000 were difficult to handle, wait till you see the impacts for the next 200,000, because we're not going to be able to continue to widen these roads and expand these facilities. These facilities are going to fail, and they're going to fail miserably. So, would you rather preserve more open space, protect and create more parklands, endangered species, floodplain protection, or would you rather have more land appropriated for growth and development? If you ask that question of this community, that's something I would be willing to gamble on.
So there you have it. On one hand, we have one of the finest trail and park systems in the country. And we also have the capital and public-private partnerships that are capable of achieving big, complex, inspirational projects. At the same time, our weak regulation of real estate development and short-sighted planning for population growth has created a landscape that looks more like a gold rush in the Wild West than a well-planned community. As we go forward, we will be judged not by how many gated communities and McMansions we build, but rather by initiatives like the Legacy Trail, the Bay Park Conservancy, and Bobby Jones. For more information on the Legacy Trail, the Gulf Coast Trail, and the Trust for Public Land, visit these sites. And you can always watch this episode and all our previous episodes on my website, Facebook, and YouTube platforms. Well, that wraps up another one. Hope you learned something and enjoyed the show. Until next time, thanks for watching. I'm Suzanne Atwell, and I'll see you around town.
If you would like to support local public service programming like this, please visit our website, suzanneatwell.org, to make a tax-deductible donation.